Okay, let's dig into this. Operation Sindoor. You've probably seen the headlines about India's military action after that Pahalgam attack.
Yeah, it's been all over the news.
Exactly. So what we want to do here is, go a bit deeper than just the surface stuff. We'll unpack what reportedly happened, why it's such a big deal, and what the different sources we've looked at are telling us.
And we've got quite a range, right?
We do. We've got transcripts from Hindustan Times, India Today, their YouTube channels, actually. Then there's the official statement from India's Ministry of External Affairs and a pretty detailed report from Al Jazeera.
So different angles. You've got the Indian perspective, journalistic takes, and then an international view, which includes Pakistan's side, too.
Right. So our goal really is just to give you a clear picture, understand the events, what might be behind them, the potential fallout, without getting lost in all the jargon.
And it's interesting how these sources sometimes line up and sometimes, well, they really don't. Seeing them together helps build that, more complete, if maybe complicated picture.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's start where this really kicked off. The Pahalgam attack, April 22nd, 2025.
In Jammu and Kashmir. Awful incident.
Truly awful. 26 people killed, and that included a Nepali national. The sources point out this wasn't just, another attack. It was the deadliest single terror incident for civilians in India since the 2008 Mumbai attacks.
A grim benchmark.
Yeah. And the Hindustan Times transcript, it paints a really brutal picture. Close-range headshots, deliberately terrifying families, even telling them to take back the news. The aim seemed to be, well, to shatter that sense of normalcy they were trying to build back in J&K.
And hit the tourism, right, which was apparently booming.
Exactly. Record number, something like 23 million visitors mentioned. So the attack seemed designed to undermine that progress, damage the economy, maybe even stir up communal trouble. That's what the MEA statement suggested were the objectives.
And responsibility was claimed by the Resistance Front, TRF.
Right, and this is where it gets layered, like you said. All our sources, they basically connect TRF to Lashkar-e-Taiba, Lef.
Which is a known Pakistani group, banned by the UN.
Correct. And the Hindustan Times piece even mentions India had already flagged TRF to the UN Sanctions Committee, saying it was just a cover for Lati. This was before Pahalgam.
So an established link, at least in India's view.
And then, after the attack, Pakistan apparently tried to get references to TRF removed from a UN Security Council statement. The MEA points this out. It sort of highlights that whole strategy of using front groups for deniability.
Plausible deniability. It gives them strategic wiggle room. And that UN Security Council statement on April 25th, the one condemning the attack, it's important context.
How so?
Well, it called for accountability, not just for the attackers, but the organizers, financiers, sponsors. That's the international backdrop India likely points to for its own actions later.
Okay, right. So fast forward about 2 weeks from Pahalgam. According to the Indian sources, the MEA, Hindustan Times Pakistan hadn't really taken any demonstrable steps.
Against the terror infrastructure, you mean?
Yeah, exactly. And on top of that, Indian intelligence was apparently indicating more attacks were in the pipeline.
Which leads us to Operation Sindoor.
Precisely. India's stated justification, across their official statement in the news reports, was basically prevention and deterrence, to stop more cross-border attacks.
And they were careful with the wording.
Very. The MEA described the operation as measured, non-escalatory, proportionate, and responsible, focused purely on taking out terror infrastructure and operatives.
That language, non-escalatory, proportionate, it's clearly aimed at the international community, framing it as a legitimate counterterrorism response, possibly referencing that UNSC statement about accountability.
Okay, so let's get into the specifics of the operation itself. Night of May 6th, 7th. The timing given was between like 1:05 a.m. and 1:30 a.m.
Pretty tight window.
Yeah. And the target number cited by Indian military officials, Colonel Qureshi and Wing Commander Singh in those briefings, was 9. 9 terrorist camps.
And the locations are key here.
Definitely. Because it wasn't just in Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir, POJK. 5 camps there, apparently. But 4 were deeper inside Pakistan itself, in Punjab province.
And that's a major shift, isn't it? Hitting targets in Punjab.
Huge. That's what stands out. It goes beyond the usual tit-for-tat near the Lasi. It's striking into Pakistan's, heartland.
Al Jazeera picked up on that too. They highlighted it's the first time since the 71 war that Punjab province itself was hit by Indian military action.
And some of these places, Moradke, Sialkot, Bahalpur, they're near big cities. That definitely raises the stakes.
So what kind of targets did the Indian military say they hit?
Well, they described a whole range. Recruitment centers, places for indoctrination,
What?
training areas, both basic and refresher courses and launch pads. They called it a terror ecosystem built over like 3 decades.
A whole infrastructure.
Right. And they stressed that target selection was based on solid intel, aiming to break the backbone of terror ops while specifically trying not to cause civilian damage.
How did they claim they achieved that?
They mentioned using precision capabilities, niche technology weapons, and picking warheads carefully to minimize collateral damage, focusing on specific buildings or groups of buildings within these camps. Clinical efficiency was the term used.
Did they name the camps?
Oh yeah, very specific details. In POJK, they listed places like Soainala in Muzaffarabad, linked to Pahalgam, they said. Sina Bilal, also Muzaffarabad, supposedly a jam staging area. Gulpur in Kotli, and a Leti base active in Rajuri Poonch. Bernala in Bember for weapons and IET training. And Abbas Camp in Kotli, apparently for Leti suicide attackers, the Fidiyin.
Okay. And the ones in Punjab province?
Right. Sarjal Camp near Sialkot, linked to attacks on J&K police. The Munajoya, also Sialkot, supposedly a major Hizbul Mujahideen control center, and tied to the Pathanga Air Base attack plan. Then Markaz Taba in Muridke.
That's the infamous Lati camp.
The very one, where the 2008 Mumbai attackers like Ajmal Kasab and David Headley were trained. That's quite deep inside Pakistan.
A significant target, symbolically and practically.
And finally, Markaz Subhanallah in Bahawalpur, called the GEM headquarters. Recruitment, training, frequented by top leaders apparently, also far from the border.
And India's claim was no military sites hit, no civilian deaths from their side.
That was their explicit statement. No military establishments targeted, no reports of civilian casualties resulting from their operation.
Okay. Now, we absolutely have to contrast that with Pakistan's version.
Completely different story. Al Jazeera and India Today both reported on Pakistan's response. Pakistan claims India launched way more strikes. They said 24 strikes across 6 locations.
24 versus 9. Big difference.
And the alleged outcome is starkly different, too. Pakistan claims those strikes resulted in 31 civilian deaths, including women and children, they said, and dozens injured.
Wow. And they accused India of hitting
Mosques and residential areas. Lieutenant General Ahmed Sharif Chaudhry, the DG ISPR, called it an unprovoked attack targeting innocent people.
So a direct accusation of war crimes, essentially.
Pretty much. And the specific sites Pakistan mentioned are different from India's list, too. They name places like Masjid Umul Qura in Muridke, Masjid Subhan near Bahawalpur, Masjid-e-Bilal in Muzaffarabad, Masjid Abbas in Kotli. Mostly mosques.
Which India says it didn't hit.
Right. So you have this fundamental disagreement, number of strikes, nature of targets, and especially the consequences of civilian deaths versus 0 civilian deaths. It couldn't be more different.
And this is where that battle of narratives comes in, as India Today called it. It's not just military action, it's an information war playing out in real time.
Absolutely. Getting independent verification on the ground is incredibly difficult in these situations, which just fuels the conflicting stories.
So stepping back, what's the bigger picture here? The significance?
Well, India Today called it the biggest counter-terror offensive by India into Pakistan's heartland. That Punjab element is repeatedly emphasized as unprecedented since '71.
Targeting those deeper locations near population centers, hitting alleged HQs of groups like Lidati, Jem, Hum groups, linked to massive past attacks like Mumbai, Pulwama, Pathangat.
It sends a message. Indian analysts quoted suggested it could have a chilling effect on the Pakistani military establishment and the terror groups. But of course, there's also the fear of retaliation.
Which Al Jazeera also noted as a major concern. Escalation potential.
India Today reported India was on high alert, expecting something back from Pakistan. Pakistan's responses in the past have included, heating up the Law C.
Which apparently has already started.
Yeah, reports of cross-Law C firing and civilian casualties on the Indian side emerged pretty quickly. Other possibilities mentioned were Pakistan targeting Indian military sites or maybe using sleeper cells.
And India's position is restraint but readiness.
That's the line. Restraint, but ready for more if Pakistan escalates. Some Indian analysts were even questioning Pakistan's air defenses, wondering why no projectiles were seemingly intercepted if the strikes happened as India described.
Interesting point. And the shift in targeting, not just launch pads, but headquarters.
That seems significant too. It suggests a move from just disrupting immediate attacks to potentially trying to dismantle the command structure. That's a much bigger and riskier strategic goal.
India Today described the next 24-48 hours as Very, very tricky. High stakes.
Definitely. There was even talk of a potential Operation Sindoor 2.0 if other terror bases weren't dealt with. Some commentators also brought up the internal economic and political pressures in Pakistan as part of the context.
And that ongoing info war, the potential for disinformation.
Right. Some analysts even floated the idea that the long-term game might need to involve making the Pakistani army less popular within Pakistan itself.
Complex layers there.
So let's try and pull the main threads together. Key takeaways from all this. First, Operation Sindoor was clearly positioned by India as a direct response to Pahalgam and ongoing terror concerns.
Driven by perceived inaction from Pakistan and intelligence about future threats.
Second, we have these two totally opposing narratives. India, precise strikes on terror camps, no civilian deaths. Pakistan, widespread strikes, many civilian deaths hitting mosques and homes.
A stark conflict in reported facts.
Third, whatever the exact details, this operation marks a major escalation. Hitting deep inside Punjab is a significant departure from recent responses.
A potential shift in India's strategic threshold.
And finally, the situation is obviously incredibly tense, volatile. The potential for more action from either side is very real. And these conflicting stories just highlight how hard it is to know what truly happened.
That shift, that willingness to strike deeper across the international border seems like the most critical strategic development to watch.
Yeah. So that wraps up our deep dive for now. We looked at the trigger, that brutal Pahalgam attack. We looked at India's justification, the focus on terror infrastructure.
Detailed the specific camps India claimed to hit, that unprecedented reach into Punjab.
And contrast it sharply with Pakistan's account of civilian casualties and different targets. It's striking, isn't it? The alleged targeting of Markaz Taba in Murdike, the 2008 Mumbai attack training ground, versus Pakistan claiming mosques were hit.
The sheer difference in the stories is maybe the biggest immediate takeaway. It forces you to question how information is being presented.
Exactly. And the difficulty in getting objective truth really underscores why looking at multiple sources, like we try to do, is so important.
Critically important.
So maybe a final thought for you, listening. Given these completely conflicting versions and the whole history between India and Pakistan, what factors do you think are most crucial when trying to figure out what's really going on in events like this?
And what could be the long-term fallout from this apparent change in how India is tackling cross-border terrorism? Lots to think about.
Definitely something to keep watching and thinking critically about as more information or perhaps more narratives emerge.